I mean, literally national publicity, just banging out not guilties after not guilties. And I'm watching these lawyers, I'm like, I'm just trying to work on my art and get people and fight these cases. And I think the way you build it is you get that big case, but you show the world who you are.
Lil Durk's legal team just released a set of filings that sent federal prosecutors scrambling like a system hit with a sudden power surge. No exaggeration. Drew Finling, widely recognized as the attorney with billion-dollar influence, submitted a motion that essentially challenged the government to either present real, tangible evidence or step aside. And the moment that document hit the record, the momentum of this case shifted sharply in Durk's direction. I'm not here to gloss it over or play the detached commentator who sounds eager for a conviction. I'm breaking down exactly what's unfolding. Before we dive into this, hit that like button if you're ready for genuine insight, and subscribe, because what I'm about to explain is why Lil Durk may actually be far closer to returning home than anyone expected. Now, to understand the current turning point, we have to revisit the moment this case began unraveling. From the start, federal agents have attempted to construct a narrative accusing Durk of orchestrating a murder-for-hire plot targeting Quando Rondo. They allege he placed a bounty, issued instructions, and set his crew in motion. But here's where the story takes a dramatic turn. For all this time, the government has been operating on broad, undefined accusations. They've announced to the court, Durk ordered it. Yet when Finling pressed them with the essential questions, when? Where? How much? What exactly was said? The response was silence. The prosecution has continually laid out theatrical descriptions of the incident, the chase, and the street dynamics surrounding the shooting. But when it comes to substantiating the claim that Durk personally initiated the order, the evidence collapses into speculation. And that's precisely what this new filing exposes. Let me walk you through this step by step, because the legal strategy here is calculated and high level. Finling submitted what's known as a motion to dismiss on grounds of vagueness. It may sound procedural, but it is a direct strike. In essence, he's telling the court, these charges are so unclear that my client cannot mount a legitimate defense. Consider it like this. Imagine you're accused of robbing a business, yet no one can tell you which business, on what date, at what time, or how much was taken. How can you defend yourself when the foundational details don't even exist? That's the exact dilemma in Durk's case. Investigators keep referencing a supposed bounty, yet cannot specify when the offer occurred, where the discussion happened, the exact language allegedly used, the amount involved, or who supposedly witnessed it. And here's the astonishing part. This lack of clarity has persisted for nearly 2 years. But that's only the surface. The real turning point came when Finling highlighted the inconsistencies of the government's primary witness, identified in filings as PW1, whose account has shifted repeatedly. At first, this witness denied any bounty existed. Later, he claimed he never agreed to harm anyone for payment. Then he said he acted under coercion. But now his newest version alleges that a member of Durk's circle remained in Los Angeles to collect and distribute this supposed bounty money. Yet the critical twist is this: the government's own evidence contradicts him. Prosecutors were forced to remove that entire allegation from their updated indictment after realizing their witness's claim couldn't be supported. Finling summarized it in the filings with precision. When a key witness continually alters their narrative regarding essential facts, the defense is forced to target an ever-shifting story, which is fundamentally unjust. And this is where observers began drawing their own conclusions. The prosecution has attempted to lean heavily on Durk's lyrics as a form of proof. But Finling dismantled that angle entirely, arguing that if the government cannot establish its case using 20 terabytes of phone data, multiple cooperating witnesses, and nationwide intelligence, and must instead rely on artistic expression, then the weaknesses in their case extend far beyond this motion. It comes off flimsy, no question. But this is the part that really stands out. Drew Finling laid out an example about coded phrasing that captures exactly how skewed the whole process feels. He explained, picture them keeping Durk completely uninformed about the supposed coded language he allegedly used. Then suddenly, at trial, a witness claims, when Durk said the eagle has landed, he was signaling a payout for a killing. How is Durk's defense supposed to respond when they're blindsided with that for the first time in court? They can't investigate it, can't locate rebuttal witnesses, can't build any counter-argument. That's classic trial ambush, and that's not lawful. And the conversation in the streets has been centered on this filing all week, with good reason. Legal analysts say it's one of the strongest procedural attacks they've seen in a federal prosecution of this kind. What Finling effectively did was spotlight the government's entire playbook. They've been trying to overwhelm jurors with gripping imagery of the shooting, the surveillance, the snapshots, all the street theatrics, hoping no one notices what's missing. They still can't concretely prove Durk authorized the act. It's the equivalent of showing a courtroom an intense reel of a bank heist and then declaring, and this individual over here orchestrated the whole operation, without providing a single thread tying him to the planning. The footage might be compelling, but without a link to the mastermind claim, the case collapses. And what's even more astonishing is the government's argument that the exact words Durk allegedly used don't represent essential elements of the crime. Finling pushed back forcefully. A bounty solicitation is as crucial to a murder-for-hire charge as a false statement is to a wire fraud indictment. And here's the straight truth about what that means for Durk's situation. This motion forces federal prosecutors to reveal their evidence. They can't continue relying on vague narratives and shifting testimonies. Finling essentially told them, show it or drop it. If the government can't outline the precise moment, location, and manner in which Durk supposedly issued this bounty, the entire case could collapse. And based on the filings we've seen, they've struggled to pin down those specifics for 2 years running. The fact that their primary witness keeps altering his account is a serious obstacle. Jurors are notoriously skeptical of anyone who can't keep their narrative consistent, especially a witness staring down life behind bars, with every incentive to bend the truth for self-preservation. And there's another factor tipping the scales in Durk's favor. Prosecutors have already stripped parts from their own indictment after realizing the evidence didn't support those claims. That signals overreach right from the outset. But here's why this motion carries such legal weight. First, it attacks the bedrock of the entire prosecution. Without proving a bounty directive, the murder-for-hire theory collapses. And once that falls apart, most of the related counts crumble with it. Second, it exposes the government's dependence on a witness whose credibility is hanging by a thread. When your star witness has delivered 4 conflicting versions of the same event, that's a damage you can't easily repair. Third, it demonstrates how prosecutors have been stretching and reshaping the facts. They've been shifting their case theory as they go, which is fundamentally at odds with how the justice system is supposed to operate. The grand jury authorized charges based on one narrative, but prosecutors are now attempting to try the case using a different one. That's unlawful, and Finling called them out directly. The street view. From the perspective of the streets, all of this adds up. Consider how federal cases typically unfold. Someone close flips, that person delivers a story, and prosecutors build around it. But what do you do when that individual keeps rewriting their account? What happens when the evidence doesn't line up with their claims? What happens when they can't even recount basic details of the event they're describing? That's precisely the scenario here. The feds thought they had a straightforward win, but once you dig into the actual evidence, the gaps are glaring. And there's another key piece. Durk wasn't in Georgia when King Vaughn lost his life. He wasn't in Los Angeles when the shooting occurred. So the only connecting thread the government can rely on is the claim that he issued instructions from afar. But if they can't establish what those instructions were, when they were given, or how they were communicated, then there's no foundation tying him to these crimes at all. What Drew Findling executed with this filing is high-level legal maneuvering. He isn't merely shielding Durk, he's launching a full-scale counterattack by insisting on precise information about the alleged bounty and supposed directives. He's cornering the government into either producing evidence they may not possess or acknowledging that much of their case rests on conjecture. And here's the remarkable part. Even if the court doesn't toss the charges outright, the judge could compel prosecutors to provide a bill of particulars, essentially, a point-by-point outline of their accusations. If the government can't deliver those specifics, or if their breakdown clashes with what they told the grand jury, Durk's team can dismantle the prosecution's narrative when trial comes. But let's widen the lens and look at what this represents for hip-hop as a whole. For years, federal agents have been targeting rappers by weaponizing their lyrics, from Bobby Shmurda to YNW Melly to now Durk, repeatedly trying to turn creative storytelling into incriminating evidence. But what Findling just did may shift that entire conversation. He essentially told the court, if your case hinges on interpreting rap lyrics, then you don't have a case at all. That argument could lay the groundwork for protecting artists from having their art twisted into alleged confessions. Here's another major issue that helps Durk. The government's timeline does not align with logic. They're attempting to use a track released 7 months before the shooting as proof of a bounty. But how do you claim a piece of art created half a year earlier establishes intent for a specific act? That's like insisting someone who wrote a song about bank heists in January must have masterminded the robbery that took place in August. It simply doesn't hold up. And now let's address this witness, because this is where the prosecution's case truly unravels. Their key witness first said no bounty existed, then claimed he was coerced, then alleged someone else collected the payment. But the government's own records contradict that third version. So now they're left with a witness stripped of credibility, yet he's the one expected to testify on the central claim in the case. That's a near impossible sell to a jury. What's even more revealing is what prosecutors don't have. There are no recordings of Durk ordering anything, no texts discussing a bounty, no financial transfers tied to a payment, no witnesses who claim to have heard explicit instructions, no physical evidence linking Durk to any planning. All they possess is circumstantial material and the testimony of someone who can't keep his story intact. That's nowhere near the threshold required for a federal murder-for-hire conviction. Findling's approach is sharp because he isn't solely defending, he's undermining the prosecution's standing. By highlighting these structural flaws, he makes it far tougher for them to sway a jury. Even if certain pieces of evidence seem damaging on the surface, Jurors will remember that prosecutors failed to outline even the most basic specifics of their core allegation, which plants reasonable doubt. So here's the truth, plain and simple. This motion may have fundamentally altered the trajectory of Durk's case. The government has been leaning on assumptions and unstable testimony from day one, hoping dramatic storytelling would obscure the holes in their evidence. But Findling just laid every one of those gaps bare. He forced prosecutors into a corner where they must either substantiate their claims or fall silent. And based on what surfaced so far, they may not have the material to back anything up. Now, that doesn't guarantee Durk walks free. The Fed still have resources and could attempt to regroup. But what it does mean is that his odds have significantly improved. This motion demonstrates that with the right legal mind, one willing to challenge the system at every turn, you can expose the fragility of a government prosecution. Findling reminded everyone that the burden rests on the state, not the defense. And if they can't prove when, where, or how Durk allegedly authorized this bounty, the entire case could collapse. The streets have been calling for Durk's freedom since his arrest, and after reading this motion, that outcome feels more plausible than ever. Let me know what you'll think. Drop your thoughts in the comments and tell me whether you believe Durk can beat this. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell. I'll be breaking down every update as it lands. Until next time, stay sharp, and remember, authenticity recognizes authenticity.